All right, we should be recording and live now. Um, Here with our brand new assistant coach, Katie Craig. If you're listening to this and you like follow us on social media, you probably already know. Just because we already announced it like through a post, but haven't announced it officially on the podcast yet. I know there were a few people who they like either commented on the post or like messaged me and like I had a feeling something was going on. I know Joni was one of them. Um, just because obviously you've been on the podcast, for the past I don't know, like every other week for the past month or so. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, super exciting stuff. If you haven't listened to the other episodes, Katie's been a one-on-one client of mine for like 2 years now. Obviously, has seen a huge transformation on the inside and out. She got her nutrition coaching certification from Precision Nutrition just like a month ago or so, and obviously has been learning so much, working with me under my wing and everything for the past 2 years, and has been learning even more about like the direct coaching process the past couple of months. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, super excited. How does it feel for the cat to be out of the bag?
I'm so excited. Yeah, and the support has been incredible. So I'm pumped and I'm ready to get started.
Yeah, and we also, if you have followed us on social media, we announced that Katie was taking clients obviously now, and that we are doing a discount for the first 5 people, and we're like less than 2 weeks after that announcement, and those five discounted spots are already taken already, which is incredible.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of people already have trusted in you and like your journey and what you've learned and are really excited to take the leap to work with you. And Katie's still taking on clients, so she still has spots, just not necessarily the discount we were doing before. But doesn't mean that, if you want to take the leap, you shouldn't. Like you absolutely should still. Um, yeah, I'm excited. It's been a long time coming, finally being able to put it out there.
Yes, it feels good for sure.
Yeah. So today, we wanted to do a podcast episode all about Katie and diving into just kind of her life story and getting to know her more. You guys have, if you've listened to my podcast for a while, you've probably heard a lot about my story growing up and everything. So I thought it'd be cool to dive into Katie's story and what kind of things she experienced growing up, what her lifestyle was like, and then what kind of journey she had, obviously, with her own fitness a little bit, and then also like why she even decided that she wanted to become a coach. Going to the day you're born, what do you remember? Um, no, I'm just kidding. But no, let's go back to like where you're from, where you grew up, what your family life looked like. Did you have any siblings? Let's kind of just dive into that so people can kind of get to know you there.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Lexington, Ohio. I'm the youngest of three girls. I have my oldest sister is 6 years older than me. My middle sister is like 19 months older than me. And then obviously there's me. My parents have been together since they were like 19 and 21. So they have been together for a very long time. So we had a very tight-knit family. My dad always worked, and I remember growing up, my dad was always out of the home. I mean, he was working, but my mom was a stay-at-home mom, so we spent a lot of time just the girls. But I had an amazing childhood. I really was so blessed. My sisters and I are extremely close. My family's very close. Grew up in like the best neighborhood I feel like you could ever grow up in. Like all of my childhood memories are like being outside with my neighbor friends and, playing outside from morning until nighttime when your parents would scream down the road, when the street lights came on. So just I had an amazing upbringing and very blessed for that. I think like if we're talking about like the fitness aspect of things, like I don't know, I was very active growing up. Like we were Always in sports. Like my dad worked so hard so my sister and I played on travel softball teams from the time that we were like, I think I was 8 and she was going on 10. So always played little league, always played travel teams. My dad worked extremely hard. He was our coach. So we were always like really active. I think like I wasn't like a chubby kid, but looking back, like I was always bigger than my friends, like always. And I don't know if like you had to do this or if your school made you do this, but like I remember we would have to go and get like physicals
Hmm.
before school started in the summer. Did you have to do that? Or was that like a weird Lexington thing?
Um, like going to the doctors and getting like a full-on physical,
Okay, so like
or
there was a building in Lexington, like it was a doctor's office, but like everybody would go and everybody would like line up with their physical paper. There was like 1 or 2 nights a week that it was like open in the summer and you had to get that physical done before school started. And
Mhm.
this is like the most whacked up memory, but I remember like being in line with my friends and like you would go in and they'd weigh you and they'd like read your weight out loud and weigh you and like your friends could hear what you weighed. And like this may sound insane, but I remember that being like the start of me being fixated on my
Mhm.
weight because my friends would be like 30, 40 pounds less than me because they're like tiny little twigs. And then there's me who's like, I wasn't a fat kid, but I was bigger and I was more, muscular, I feel like. So, and that was probably like fifth or sixth grade. I remember that started. Um, so like even from like a super young age like that, I remember being like, my weight, my weight, my
Mhm.
weight.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we never had to do that. I don't remember ever having to stand in line and have like your weight recorded in a bunch of people. And
Yes.
you said they did that every year?
Yes. Maybe like I'm insane, but I feel like it was every year. I remember it like very clearly. And I don't remember if it was like for sport, like maybe it was for fall sports and that's why, but like there was like one night that everybody went, and I just remember waiting in line outside, like with a bunch of my friends, and like you step in, you get your weight, you get your like all of that. I remember it so clearly. And I remember dreading it because I was like, oh my God, they're going to read my weight out loud, and my friend's going to hear me, and she's going to be like, oh my gosh, you weigh that much. Like, it's
Mhm.
such a odd thing, but honest to God, that's like where I feel like it all started for me.
Yeah, I feel like there's always some kind of um like childhood event or story or
Yeah.
something with like everybody who ends up like eventually becoming a coach or eventually even just dealing with their own struggles maybe with their weight at some point. um like for me, I was kind of like what you kind of said. I wasn't really super big as a kid. I was one of those kids, at least I felt like, at least most of the time, like I'd wear a t-shirt and I wouldn't really look that big, but I was like really insecure with what I look like without a t-shirt on. Like when we'd
Yeah.
go swimming or we'd go like play in the slip and slide or water balloons with kids and stuff, like being self-conscious there. So just kind of in that like middle ground where like there were so many kids who felt like were in better shape or more fit than me or skinnier than me. Um, and it just, makes you feel uncomfortable, especially when you get lined up in front of everybody and like, especially with, girls, like telling them their
Yeah.
weight in front of everybody.
Yeah.
Like that's really hard. So that was like fifth or sixth grade, you said?
Yeah, I feel like that's when it started. And like looking back, I think having older sisters, especially my sister that was 6 years older than me, like when I was in third, fourth, fifth grade, like I feel like those crucial kind of years, she was in junior high and high school. So like I remember looking at her high school yearbooks and seeing that for, I don't even know what they're called, but like when they do like best body, best
Hmm.
legs, and I was like this young kid looking at that and thinking, oh my God, like I have to get, I want to get that when I get older. So it just started so young for me. And I remember like my mom was always in my young years, she was overweight But then she got like super, super fit, super active, she probably lost 90 pounds maybe. Um, Always she would track it because obviously we didn't have cell phones or anything back
Hmm.
then. And I remember she had this notebook and she would write down everything that she ate. She'd write down her calories, her, fat. I could still to this day tell you like how much fat and calories a sandwich at McDonald's has because I remember her talking about it. I remember walking, like she would walk 3 to 4 miles every day in our neighborhood. And sometimes I would go with her, sometimes I wouldn't. Um, she was never like in our faces about it, like, you have to be skinny, you have to do all of this. But I watched her and I watched her lose all that weight and I watched her be, super, super strict on what she would eat. I remember going to restaurants and she'd pull out her little container of fat-free sour cream and spray butter to put on her baked potato that she would get at the restaurant. Like I remember all of that. So I think for me, like growing up watching all of that always made me like hyper aware of what I was eating and what I was, putting in my body, which I never had like an eating disorder and like a problem with eating, but I think that's why I've always been so strict on what I eat.
Hmm. Yeah, it's so funny because you brought up like your mom and then even like your sisters and them, and when you're the youngest, you get exposed to like things a lot sooner probably than what like the oldest
Mhm.
person gets exposed to because like you watch
Yeah.
them and you're so observant with them, um,
Mhm.
and um, I remember too. Like when I was growing up, my mom, she always struggled with her weight for like a really long time after I was born, and um, my dad did too, but I didn't really notice him going on diets as much, other than I just
Yeah.
knew like he was overweight. But like we had like Slim Fast in the cabinets, if you remember those, like the
Yep.
Slim Fast protein bars and protein shakes, which are like disgusting from what I remember. Um,
They're like
uh,
chalk.
yeah, and like my mom would buy those, and I would like drink them sometimes too, and even my sisters. So it's just like you. I think a lot of people have this story where they're just exposed to it, whether it's from like just their own experience or like something at school or their older siblings or their parents like struggled with this kind of stuff, so they like became so hyper aware of food and their body fat level and this and sometimes it can really go down a dark rabbit hole, like you said, like the eating disorder realm, and then other times it just makes you just like more hyper aware, and maybe these are things that like mentally you have to end up working through eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. And like, I think I'm so big on like childhood trauma and things that like shape you as a child just from being in the child welfare world for as long as I have been. And I always like joke with my parents, like, my childhood trauma is so just like it's nothing really, but everybody has something that like shapes them for who they are now, whether you look at that as trauma or you look at that as an experience, it's still something that like has shaped you. And sometimes my mom will get really defensive and she's like, "Ugh, I didn't do that to you." And like I don't ever want it to seem like, I'm saying that like they gave me these awful
Mhm, yeah.
habits because they didn't, but I think you are shaped by your experiences growing up and you are shaped by what you're exposed to. And I think that's why I'm so careful having three daughters myself. They're watching me. How am I talking about food? How am I talking about my bodies, or my body? I want them to see like, oh, mommy eats ice cream and pizza too. Like, and when I eat that, I'm not like, oh my gosh, I feel like such a, fat piece of crap today.
Mhm,
I try to be like really positive and really like careful about what I say because I don't want them to ever look back and be like, oh my gosh, my mom was such a psycho about her food and she tracked absolutely. They don't know that I track my food on my phone. Like they have no idea that I do that because I don't want them to know that I do that because I don't want them to fixate on, what they're eating. But I think it's so scary because like having girls, I've already noticed like them noticing things about their own bodies. And I know that that's not coming from me, that's coming from what they're hearing at school. Um, and I remember people in my grade talking about their bodies and stuff, but it's nothing like it is now. So it's just scary. Like you really have to be careful like how you put things and how you're, acting and stuff in front of your kids when it comes to nutrition and fitness. So I'm like super
Yeah.
hyper aware of that.
Yeah, for sure. What you talked about like a little bit in the beginning there about just like sharing the story about, your mom and like you not wanting her to feel like, you're saying she was like a terrible mother or anything like that. And like I've had so many of those thoughts just sharing my story with like my parents and like I never wanted to come across as like, oh, my parents were horrible because they were out of shape and didn't take care of themselves and passed on like bad eating habits to me.
Yeah.
Like I never wanted to come off that way because they were great. At least I think they were great. And like, I wouldn't be who I am today without like how they did things, whether that was even positive in the moment or negative in the
Right.
moment too. Like, I think when it comes to like growing up and everything, you either take on like all of or a lot of your parents' behaviors, good or bad, or you take on the
Mhm.
good ones and then the bad ones maybe are the ones that don't really suit you as much. You can still get value out of like your parents living maybe an unhealthy life or this or that because you can learn from that and then do the
Yeah.
opposite, for yourself and your family. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, and then what you said too with the messages that like, your daughters might hear and everything. And it is really hard, especially now with social media. Like I don't your kids probably don't have like social media or have smartphones or
No,
anything.
I don't have
But
YouTube or anything.
right, but eventually, when they get older, they
Yeah,
will probably. And
it's
it's like,
inevitable.
yeah,
Mhm.
and it's just the access to information and negative information. It is scary, compared to like you and I, like how it was when we grew up. I know like we're not the exact age, you're maybe a few years older than me, but um like I don't remember social media really becoming big until like I think it was like sophomore year of high school where it was kind of
Yeah,
like
I
people
was
had
gonna say.
Facebook. That was like what people
Mhm.
had, and Twitter was kind of growing then, but it still wasn't as big as what it is now. So it is scary. So making sure that you're setting a good example is super important. And I love that you said, your daughters don't even know that you track your food. Like you just do it in a subtle way so they don't
Mhm.
know. And eventually they might find out from just watching, but really like explaining it to them if it does come up in a positive light is super important. I've had conversations with clients where like if anything pops up, like you want to explain, hey, I'm tracking my food because I want to make sure I'm eating enough so I feel good and I feel strong and I
Yeah.
don't, undereat or I don't eat too little of things versus telling them, oh, well, I have to track this because I want to make sure I don't eat too many calories or like verbally saying, oh, I can't have this slice of pizza because it's too many calories. And instead, you can just say that maybe in your head you think, oh, if I eat this pizza, I'm going to go over my calories so I can't. But when you say it out loud to your kids, framing it in a way of, I'm not really that hungry for this pizza. And just, kind of not putting those things out like from your mouth because they're going to hear so many of those negative things, on social media and from their friends and everyone too.
Yeah. And I try so hard to be like all about positivity and like body image and loving your body and loving yourself. And that is something that is just like again, mom, if you're hearing this, I love you, but my mom was like, and to this day, she will not put on a pair of shorts. She never would wear shorts when we were growing up. Losing all that weight, she has a lot of like excess, skin. She just last summer went to the pool for the first time since I was probably 18, maybe. That was the last time that I ever remember her putting on a bathing suit and getting in a swimming pool. And we were on vacation in Florida. And before that, I don't think she ever did in my childhood. Um, and in her brain, I think it's like she thought maybe she was just like keeping that as like, oh, I just don't like the way that I look in a bathing suit. But like having three daughters, like that shaped my brain to think, oh, well, you can't put on a bathing suit then unless you look a certain way, or you can't wear a pair of shorts unless you look a certain way. And I developed that as a teenager. And my best friend growing up had a pool. We always had, people over there swimming. I'll never forget this in my entire life. I will never forget this. There was a bunch of us at the pool, and I was probably ninth grade, maybe. Um, and I had a bathing suit on, and one of my neighbor boys, he looked at me at the pool and he said, I thought dimples were supposed to be on your face, not your butt. And I was like, I'm never putting a bathing suit on again. Like, it ruined me. And I see that asshole at the gym every single day now, which it's funny how life comes full circle. And
Hmm.
I just want to be like, you can kiss my ass. But that stuck with me. And I just remember like anytime that I put on a pair of shorts, anytime I put on a bathing suit, I was like, oh my God, people are judging me. He said that to me. So everybody else has to be thinking it. And so I got that from him. But then I also had my mom who was like, I'm not putting on a pair of shorts. It could be 95 degrees outside sitting at one of our softball tournaments all weekend, and she would sit in jeans. She would not wear a pair of shorts. So I don't love the way that I look in shorts all the time, but like you bet your ass I'm putting on a pair of shorts so my kids don't have those same memories. And I think that's so lost on people. Like moms get so stuck in their own like insecurities that they don't realize that they're shaping the thoughts of their daughters for the rest of their lives. And I wish more people knew that, I think, because you don't have to have a certain body to wear a pair of shorts and you don't have to have a certain body to wear a bathing suit. Like you're shaping your kids' body image and you're shaping what your kids think are normal. And I don't want my kids to look back and think, I have to look a certain way to put a bathing suit on, or I have to look a certain way to wear a pair of shorts. I want them to be like, my mom rocked that, growing up. And my mom put on a bathing suit and was in the pool with us. And my mom, wore shorts. So it's like a normal thing for them. I think that's so huge for me and something that I've like really worked on in my mom years. So like the last 7 years.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. It's so important to like do those things anyway and to not let those negative emotions that you might feel and to work on like the internal mindset of yourself of like overcoming those insecurities. And like sometimes
Yeah.
that comes from like actually working on yourself physically so you truly feel better about yourself sometimes. Like if
Yeah.
there's an insecurity that you have and you're able to do that by, working out, seeing more muscle tone or this or that, like, yeah, you can kind of fix that insecurity in that way. But also, even if your body doesn't physically change, just like focusing on improving your health and your strength and showing up for yourself also gives you just confidence in who you are as a person. So even if you still have, the cellulite on your legs, if you're showing
Yeah.
up to the gym consistently and you feel strong and you're fueling your body right with, good foods and know that you're prioritizing yourself, your confidence is so much higher from those actions you're actually taking and who you are that
Right.
that cellulite there doesn't really bother you as much anymore.
Hmm.
Um, and you're like, hey, I understand maybe I'm not the thinnest person at the pool, but how many of these other women or girls can squat 200 pounds or something? And like,
Right.
probably very
Yeah.
little. And it's not that you want to compare yourself to people, but
It's
just
normal.
knowing, yeah, it's normal. And just knowing that, hey, I might not be the skinniest person, but I'm healthy and I'm strong and I'm stronger than most. And I put in more work than most people because I show up for myself. Like that can then help those insecurities not feel as big. So then you are able to wear the shorts, you are able to wear the bathing suit, especially in front of your kids and set a good example. So I think people think being able to wear those things and fix that, the only way to do it is by changing their body. But excuse me, even if you don't even change your body, but you're showing up for yourself, it makes those insecurities not as big too.
Yeah, I mean, I think ever since I've had kids, I've had cellulite, I have varicose vein, like I'm a mess. And that used to be something that I was like, oh my gosh, like I would dread summer, I would dread wearing shorts. But something like really shifted in me. And when you start working, like you said, when you start working on yourself, you just care less about those things because you're like, you know what? I've spent how many hours at the gym this week? I don't care if, and when you really start to look around, because we all do it, like we all look at other people and we all compare ourselves to other people. I don't think that that's something that's like ever going to not be a thing. I can look at a girl in shorts and be like, damn, her legs look awesome. Like, I wish mine looked like that. And then just like go about my day. I don't beat myself up over it, but you just really care less about those little imperfections because you realize how many people have them. And you're like you said, okay, I feel so much stronger and I feel so much better because I'm working towards these things. Those little things don't really matter at all.
Yeah, and like I said, really focusing on your performance and how strong your body feels too makes such a big difference in your overall confidence. Like, and for full transparency, like, I did a powerlifting meet, I don't know, like 2 months ago, and
Yeah.
deadlifted 600 pounds, and that was a number I'd been chasing for so long, and I
Yeah.
finally did it. And there was like this company that you could like pay, and they would take pictures and videos and stuff of you. And there were some pictures where like me in my super tight singlet, where I'm like, man, my stomach looks kind of big, and like don't really look that lean in these pictures. And some of them were like a little unflattering or whatever. But like I look at those pictures, and because my body is capable of doing what it did, like deadlifting 600 pounds, which most people will never do that in their life, like it
Right.
helps me to not feel as insecure about, oh, who cares what my stomach looked like in this? Because I was able to do this. So, like, when you're showing up and you're feeling strong and you're, being able to like take pride in what your body's capable of doing, it, like I said, kind of doles down those insecurities that you just see like with your eyes externally.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so growing up, like you mentioned, you were felt a little bit bigger than, most of your friends and everything. To kind of take us through what your relationship with like food and your body was like maybe in college, after high school and then leading into when you eventually started having kids. Kind of take us through that and what your relationship was with those variables there.
Yeah, I think college, I I became like I was off the chain.
We all
Uh
have stories like that. Most people do, at least.
yeah. I don't think I ate much, honestly. I think I just drank, which is awful and super unhealthy. So I did, like I slimmed down in college, which I think most people gained weight in college, but I didn't have a car, so I was walking all over God's creation. I was barely eating. I was super unhealthy, super unhappy, super miserable. Um, I think college, like I had the best time of my life, but looking back, like internally, that was like it was awful. I dated somebody, the same guy for the whole 4.5 years I was there. It was super toxic, super unhealthy. So, looking back on that, I think that I was like the thinnest maybe, but I was like definitely the most unhealthy. Um, when I got out of college, and moved home, like life kind of steamrolled really fast for me. As soon as I moved home, I met my now husband. We worked out together. We went to the gym together and stuff. I don't think I was like, I don't know. I just don't like look back on those years and think like, oh, I was really happy with my appearance or my body or anything like that. It's all kind of like a blur for me. Um, I know after I had my first daughter, like I look back at pictures now and I'm like, why did nobody tell me? Why did nobody tell me how overweight I was? Um, but even then, like I didn't overeat. Like I don't ever remember, and I think that's what's so like weird because I think my story is so different. I think so many women struggle with like overeating or like knowing what to eat and not eating healthy, and like that's never really been a thing for me. For me, it's always been like under eating and eating I eat healthy, but not enough. And like I said, in college, it was like not eating and then you're drinking all the time. So like I was thin, but then after I had Easton, I think I just like ballooned up from just like the weight that I gained in pregnancy. And then I wasn't working out and I didn't have a gym, routine. And then I got pregnant super quick. I think Easton was 9 months old 9 or 10 months old, maybe when I got pregnant with Ellie. So it was after I had my second daughter that I was like, I have got to get my shit together. My mental health was awful. Two kids in, 2 years. I was like just not in a good place mentally. Ellie had awful colic, so she cried every freaking day for hours a day. Um, and then COVID happened. And so I was like trapped in my home, two kids under two, just like something's got to give. And um, when COVID happened and I was home all the time, I was like, okay, and I think that's when I started a workout program with a friend of mine. And that was really good for me. I lost a bunch of weight. And then Corey got diagnosed with cancer a couple months after that. So it just felt like the hits kept coming. And looking back, like I lost a lot of weight, but I was so unhealthy. Like, um, so unhealthy mentally and emotionally, and I don't think I was like eating enough because that program was just strictly like here's your workouts. It wasn't like, hey, this is what you need to be eating to be doing these kind of workouts. So I mean, I dropped weight and I think people were looking at it like, oh my God, you're so successful, you lost all this weight, but like on the inside I'm dying inside, I'm miserable, my mental health is shit. I'm unhappy. I'm not looking in the mirror thinking like, "Oh my God, I'm so proud of myself." So that was like still a pretty low point for me. Um, and then obviously after like we got through Corey's cancer, our focus was, can we have any more kids? So I was going through the insemination process and all of that. So like that kind of takes a toll
Hmm.
on your body. And during my pregnancy with Emery, is when actually I was talking to my OB and his wife was working with you at the time. And I was losing weight when I was pregnant with her because I was so sick. And I was like, I just need to know what to eat that I can like be healthy and get through this. And that's when he recommended talking to you. So I had kind of like followed your page and everything and was like watching, but it wasn't till after I had her that I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And I was working out through my whole pregnancy with her, which helped. I remember when I had her, the nurse telling me, "Oh my God, you're so skinny. Like you're so skinny," because I just like was sick and I wasn't eating and I was working out. And like, I think that's the point that I'm trying to make is like, I
Hmm.
think so many women are like, I just want to be skinny and then I'll be happy. I just want to be skinny. And like, there's a lot of times in my journey that I can look back and be like, man, I was like pretty thin, but I was fucking miserable. Like, my mental health was shit. I was miserable. I was not happy when I was looking in the mirror. And it wasn't until I learned how to fuel my body and I learned how to eat, to be able to handle the workouts that I was doing. And I didn't get like I don't give a shit about being skinny. I don't care about, what pants size I wear. I don't care about, the size of the shirt that I'm wearing or anything like that. I just want to be strong and I want to be healthy. So, it's been a process and a long journey for me to like really shift my mindset to like it doesn't matter how skinny you are, you can still be skinny and be miserable. And my goal now has shifted to I want to be strong, I want to be healthy, and I want my kids to look at their mom and think, wow, my mom's a badass because she can work out and she can lift weights and she can run with me and she can play with me and not get out of breath. So it's just wild how like your mindset and your goals shift throughout the years.
Yeah, that was gonna be like my kind of summary reflection of like everything you just talked about was like a common theme with all that, with all the ups and downs that you had with like where your body weight was or this or that was that. there were moments where you were skinnier, but you weren't as happy as what like you are now, or you weren't as healthy as what you
Yeah.
are now. And I think a lot of people, like you said, especially women, think I need to just be able to fit into the smaller size, or I just need to be this weight, or I just need to be skinny again, or for the first time, and I'll finally be happy. But if you don't have the right habits and the lifestyle, and you're not doing it the right way in place to get there, then there's a good chance like you're not going to find the happiness in that. And
Yeah.
even if you are doing it the right way, you need to learn how to like eventually be happy throughout the journey too, because a lot of people have long journeys that they have ahead of them. Maybe they have to lose 50 or 70, maybe even 100 pounds, or um, maybe your journey like is shorter, but then you get to your initial goal and realize, oh, like I have another goal. And so the goalpost is always either really far away, or it always ends up shifting and changing. So if you don't learn how to be happy along the way with where you're at, to some extent, like being happy doesn't mean you don't want to change ever, or you don't work towards change, but just being happy in the present moment and being grateful for the progress you're making along the way, like that is so important in the process,
Yeah.
in order to keep going. And I remember when you were in coaching, like the first year, there definitely was, I think, a shift that I remember in like your check-ins where I don't know, the first 3, 4 months, like you were seeing good progress, but mentally you just hadn't made that shift yet of like
Mhm.
being happy with where
Yeah.
you were. And I remember like then all of a sudden your check-ins and your responses changing where like you were basically embracing what I just described of like, I still have goals that I want to reach. I still want to change my body, but also at the same time, like I'm appreciating where my body's at right now too.
Yeah, and I think like I used to feel like, okay, happiness is going to come when I hit this pant size, right? Like happiness is going to come when I can slide on a size 4, size jean. But like happiness does not come from that pant size. And I've really, really, really learned like there is something so like rewarding and fulfilling when you put in that work and you are like, I have worked my ass off to get to where I am, and look at me. Like, I did that. A quick fix didn't do that. So many women are like, "Oh, I'm gonna fast or I'm gonna do keto and I'm gonna drop this weight quick." But like, good for you. That's not gonna last. Like, that's not gonna work for you long term. And I think getting out of that mindset of like wanting it to be a quick fix and wanting it to just be something that like you learned, you invested in, and you put the work in, and then seeing those results, like there is nothing better than that. And I think that was when the shift happened for me. Like, and I know what you're talking about. I remember being like, okay, you're telling me that I'm making this progress. The scale is telling me that I'm making this progress, but I'm looking in the mirror and I still see my ass is pretty fat. Like, what is happening? This is not like, when am I going to get there? And you just reminding me, like, it is a journey, it is a process. You are putting that work, like, just hearing that over and over again. And like, in the time that you were saying it, I remember being like, okay, I get it. Like, but I didn't get it. And I kept going and I kept going. And then, like, as the weeks go by, you're like, oh, there's a new muscle that's popping out. Like, that is the most rewarding feeling in the world. And like, nobody did that for you. You did that for yourself. And I just remember that being like the switch in my brain, like, okay, I'm doing this. I'm doing this for myself. I'm the one that's getting up in the morning and I'm the one that's putting in the work for this. It's not something that happened overnight. And that was just huge for me. And then you want to tell the world about it. I think, there's probably a million haters that watch my stories and watch my stuff and they think, oh my God, Katie, you're posting the same shit all the time. Nobody cares or whatever. But I've learned like those are the people that are genuinely like insecure and they're jealous because they're like, how the hell is she doing this? But I've come to the point where I'm like, if I can do this, I can tell anybody, how to do this and I can motivate anybody to do this. And I think that's what's like so fulfilling for me. And I'll use like Joni and Liz as an example. Like I've watched Joni's journey for years. I've known her forever. And I remember just like when she started, and now I see her like posting her own pictures, and I see her posting her own story because she wants to share the work that she's put in. And that's like, I feel like that's where I get giddy, because it's like, okay, that's where their mental switch is happening, because they're seeing that they work their ass off for that. And Liz, for example, like her before and afters are incredible, and it just makes me so happy because I know where she was at the beginning of this, and like seeing her share that and be vulnerable, it's like that's when her mental shift, I feel like, has happened. So now
Hmm.
she's like, okay, I want to tell the world and I want to show everybody that I did that. And it's just, it's awesome. And it's so rewarding. And I think who wouldn't want to feel that as, a human? Who wouldn't want to, in women, especially moms, especially, who wouldn't want to feel that, reward?
Hmm. Yeah, it's so cool. And like you said, there's always going to be people who like judge in some way. And I remember when I first started posting about my fitness journey back like 10 years ago, like 2014, and like there were comments that I heard from other people, or sometimes people who were from like my own like hometown school or somewhere in that area would like make
Yeah.
some kind of comment on my post, and I know it was like some kind of sarcastic comment. And it's
Yeah.
like, and now, look where I'm at now. Like now I'm able to coach people full time. And now obviously, I have you as an awesome assistant coach and everything. And that would have happened if I would have gave in to like all these people judging me and just decided not to, post.
Yeah.
And like you said, I mean, you've inspired a lot of people to just join coaching and work with me. Like obviously before you became an assistant coach, Joni and Liz, and I know there's a number of other people too who it's all have seen really great results too. And like that is so exciting when you see that, especially like you said, when they start sharing their journey, because then you like if they're sharing their journey like that, it's like an also an identity shift that's like happening inside of them of like, okay, I
Yeah.
identify as somebody who is kind of like, not that there is another side, like there's always improvement and like the journey is never really ending, but you almost feel like you're on the other side of things. You're like, okay, I'm a fit person now. I'm a person who this is part of my lifestyle, so I post it,
Yeah.
versus I'm just doing it temporarily as like a means to an end to like get to a certain result. Like I think once you start posting stuff like that yourself or sharing your own pictures and being okay with that, you kind of like view yourself as on the other side almost. Now you still have goals and you're still working to like see more progress, but you're kind of it's ingrained as like who you are at that point, which is really cool to see. Um,
Yeah.
so just kind of quickly, because I know you have to wrap up soon. What do you feel like is the reason why you like why you decided to be a coach? Why you want to be a coach? Like, what are your big motivators, or what you're looking forward to the most, like helping your current and future clients through?
Yeah. I I feel like I have a million. I think just somebody that's come from the background and the journey that I've had. And I think, I touched really quickly on it, but I could talk about mental health and, my journey with mental health for hours. Um, but I think my biggest thing is I just genuinely, and I've said this before and I mean it, I just want everybody to win. And I want other moms that have been in the trenches like I have. And when you have kids, you lose your identity for a while. And I think for so many years I was like, this is it for me. Like, I'm going to be a mom. My focus is going to be on my kids. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what I like. I don't know what my hobbies are. I don't know. I remember watching my husband shortly after we had Ellie. um, I remember getting so pissed at him because he would go out and he would golf, and he had these hobbies that he did for himself. And I remember being so mad and like resentful and just being like, how dare you? Like, how dare you go do something for yourself? And he's like, nobody's stopping you. Like, go. He's always been so supportive in that sense of like, go find something for yourself, go do something for yourself. And I'm like, I can't, I'm a mom, I can't do that for myself. And there was such a shift for me when I was like, you know what? I do deserve to be happy. I do deserve to have this hobby. And I found that in fitness, and I found myself again in fitness, and I found myself again by pouring into myself and others. And I think that's just my passion in life is I just want everybody to like really put themselves out there and really find their happiness again. Um, and for me, like, if I really think and I dig into like, okay, what makes me happy? What is my passion? That doesn't come in like the form of a job for me. Like, I feel like I could be the CEO of like a company and making millions, and I'd still be like, meh, I'm not fulfilled because my fulfillment comes from helping others. Um, Doing social work has been amazing for me, but 9 times out of 10, those people don't want my help. So I think I've just really found like, I found my calling in this, and I found, I have so much knowledge and information and love to give others and encouragement to give others. And I'm just so, so, so excited to help all these women and be able to look at their before and afters and feel like I had a small part in that because I'm sharing, my love for fitness, and I'm sharing my passion for being a mom who put themselves first. And I'm just really excited. I'm
Hmm.
really excited to get going.
Yeah, no, perfect. I mean, so many really great points in there. Not letting, your spouse stop you from focusing on yourself like you need to for your own mental health because like you said, that resentment will build up and eventually like, if you let that build up, like who knows where that resentment can go years later. And then, you don't want to be looking back to like 10 years later, 15 years later, and now dealing with health issues and then in the back of your head like blaming it on your spouse like man if he just would have let me do
Yeah.
this or this or that like you have to kind of take a stand for your own health at some point and your own well-being and um so one of the coolest things too is when you're a coach and you see the client transform on the outside, but then you also see them transform in the inside. And then also
Yeah.
when you see them like that transformation on the inside and out has caused them to have more confidence in themselves. So then they even do other things in their life that they never would have done, like they did public speaking or something because they felt more confident. Or I've had a client who decided she was going to like start writing a book, now that she has more confidence and um, when you see those like that bleed into other areas, it's so 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 rewarding because you're seeing like
Yeah.
your impact being able to like just really like bleed out to all other areas of their life and um
Yeah.
it's also really cool for me on this side of like being a coach coaching you and then seeing you go through that and now you're going through like this kind of transformation or this step of becoming a coach yourself and then allowing
Yeah.
that to like transfer to so many other people too so um
Yeah.
it's very cool so um I know we probably could have talked a lot more, but we'll wrap it up here. And obviously, you'll be on other podcasts and stuff, and people will really be able to get to know you, and other ones too. Um,
Yeah.
so, like I said, Katie is accepting clients still. So, if you are looking to work with her, let me know. And, you can fill out an application. We can get on a call, talk about it, see if it's right for you and everything like that. Um, and you definitely won't want to miss out on it. Like obviously listening to these episodes, I'm sure you already know Katie, is going to be a really awesome coach. So, um, I think that's it. Anything else you need to add?
I don't think so. I think just this is in my brain right now, but there's a movement, and I'm sure you've heard of it, but get your pink back. And I've heard that so many times as a mom. Like, have you heard that? Have you heard that
Ah,
saying? Like
it
how
like it like
flamingos and
faintly
like,
sounds familiar, but I don't. I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no.
okay, so
I
flamingos
yeah.
lose their pink when they have babies, but they get it back as their babies get older. And so there's like a movement about that. And I am just like leaving it at that. Like there is nothing that any woman that starts this could say to me that I would be like out of realm, or like that I would look at and be like, oof, you're never too far gone, I guess is what I'm trying to say, to get fit and get healthy and just be happy with who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So we will wrap it up here. Really awesome conversation, and yeah, we will see you guys in the next one then.